There we go. Today the 4th, March. 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 I only got some Wi-Fi working. In DMV connection, connection. Jesus sends out the 12 apostles. Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to cast out evil spirits and to heal every kind of disease and illness. Here are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also called Peter. Then Andrew, Peter's brother. James, son of Zebedee. John, James's brother. Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, the tax collector. James, son Alphaeus. Simon, the zealot. Jesus Iscariot, who later betrayed him. Jesus sent the 12 disciples out with these instructions, but only to the people of Israel, God's lost sheep. He said, don't go to the Gentiles or the Samaritans, but only to the people of Israel, God's lost sheep. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near. Here, the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick and raise the dead. Cure those with leprosy and cast out demons. Give as freely as you have received. Don't take any money with you. Don't carry a traveler's bag with an extra coat and sandals or even a walking stick. Don't hesitate to accept hospitality, because those who work deserve to be fed. Whenever you enter a city or a village, search for a worthy man and stay in his home until you leave for the next town. When you are invited into someone's home, give it your blessing. If it turns out to be a worthy home, let your blessing stand. If it is not, take back the blessing. If a village does not welcome you or listen to you, shake off the dust of that place from your feet as you leave. I assure you, the wicked cities of Sodom and Gomorrah will be better off on the judgment day than that place. Will be better off on the judgment day than that place will be. Look, I am sending you out as sheep among wolves. Be as weary as snakes and harmless as doves, but beware, for you have been handed over to the courts and beaten into the synagogues and you must stand trial before governors and kings because you are my followers. This will be your opportunity to tell them about me, yes, to witness to the world. When you are arrested, don't worry about what to say in your defense because you will be given the right words at the right time. For it won't be you doing the talking, it will be the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother. Father will betray their own children, and children will raise against their parents and cause them to be killed. And everyone will hate you because of your allegiance to me. But those who endure to the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one time, flee to the next. I assure you that I, the Son of Man, will return before you and have reached all the towns of Israel. The student is not greater than the teacher. The servant is not greater than the master. The servant shares the master's fate. The servant shares the master's fate. The student shares the teacher's fate. The servant shares the master's fate. And since I, the master of the household, have been called the prince of demons, how much more will it happen to you, the members of the household? That's Matthew 10, 1 through 25. Now we're going to do Leviticus 7 and 8. 7 and 8. Leviticus 7 and 8. Further instruction for the guilt offering. These are the instructions for the guilt offering, which is most holy. The animal sacrificed as a guilt offering must be slaughtered where the burnt offerings are slaughtered, and its blood sprinkled against the side of the altars. The priest will then offer all of his fat on the altar, including the fat from the tail and the fat around the internal organs, 2 kidneys with fat around them near the loins, and the lobe of the liver, which is to be removed with the kidneys. The priest will burn these parts on the altar of the offering to the Lord made by fire. It is a guilt offering. All male priests, all males from a priestess family may eat the meat, and it must be eaten in the sacred place, for it is most holy. For both the sin offering and the guilt offering, the meat of the sacrificed animal belongs to the priest in charge of the atonement ceremony. In the case of the whole burnt offering, the hide of the sacrificed animal also belongs to the priest. Any grain offerings that have been baked in the oven, prepared in a pan, or cooked on a griddle belongs to the priest. Whoever presents it, all the other grain offerings, whether flour mixed with olive oil or dry flour, are to be shared among all the priests and their sons. Further instruction for the peace offering. Different kinds of peace offerings that may be presented to the Lord. If you present your peace offering as a thanksgiving offering, the usual animal sacrifice must be accompanied by various kinds of bread, loaves, wafers, and cakes, all made without yeast and soaked with olive oil. This peace offering of thanksgiving must be accompanied by loaves of yeast bread. One of each kind of bread must be presented as a gift to the Lord. This bread will then belong to the priest who sprinkles the altar with blood from the sacrificial animal. The animal's meat must be eaten on the same day of its offer. None of it may be saved for the next morning. However, if you bring an offering to fulfill a vow as a freewill offering, the meat may be eaten on that same day, and whatever is left over may be eaten on the second. But anything left over until the third day must be completely burnt up. If any of the meat from the peace offering is eaten on the third day, it will not be accepted by the Lord. It will have no value as sacrifice, and you will receive no credit for bringing it as an offering. By then, the meat will be contaminated if you eat it. You will have to answer for your sin. meat touches anything ceremonially unclean may not be eaten. It must be completely burnt up. And as for meat that may be eaten, it may only be eaten by people who are ceremonially clean. Anyone who is ceremonially unclean but eats the meat from a peace offering that was presented to the Lord must be cut off from the community. If anyone touches anything that is unclean, whether it is human defilement or unclean animal, and then eats the meat from the Lord's sacrifice, that person must be cut off from the community. The forbidden blood and fat. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the Israelites these instructions. And the Lord said to Moses, give the Israelites these instructions. You must never eat fat, whether from oxen or sheep or goats. The fat of an animal found dead or killed by a wild animal may never be eaten, though it may be used for any other purpose. Anyone who eats fat from an offering given to the Lord by fire must be cut off from the community. Even in your homes, you must never eat the blood of any bird or animal. Anyone who eats blood must be cut off from the community. Portion for the priest. Then the Lord said to Moses, give these further instructions to the Israelites. When you bring a peace offering to the Lord, bring part of it as a special gift to the Lord. Present it to him with your own hands as an offering given to the Lord by fire. Bring the fat of the animal together with the breast and present it to the Lord by lifting it up before him. Then the priest will burn the fat on the altar, but the breast will belong to Aaron and his sons. You are to give the right thigh of your peace offering to the priest as a gift. The right thigh must always be given to the priest who sprinkles the blood and offers the fat of the peace of the offering. For I have designated the breast and the right thigh for the priest. It is their regular share of peace offerings brought by the Israelites. This is their share. It has been set apart for Aaron and his descendants from the offerings given to the Lord by fire. From the time they were appointed to serve the Lord as priests, the Lord commanded that the Israelites were to give these portions to the priests as their regular share from the time of the priest anointing. This regulation applies throughout the generations to come. These are the instructions for the whole burnt offering and the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, and the ordination offering, and the peace offering. The Lord gave these instructions to Moses on Mount Sinai when he came to Israel when he commanded the Israelites to bring their offerings to the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai. Leviticus 8. The Lord said to Moses, now bring Aaron and his sons along with their special clothing and anointing oil, the bull for the sin offering, the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread, to the entrance of the tabernacle. Then call the entire community to meet you there. So Moses followed the Lord's instructions, and all the people assembled at the tabernacle entrance. Moses announced to them, the Lord has commanded what I am going to do at the tabernacle entrance. Moses announced to them, the Lord has commanded what I am going to do now going to do. Then he presented Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. He clothed Aaron with the embroidered tunic and tied the sash around his waist. He dressed him in a robe of the ephod, along with the ephod itself, and attached the ephod with this decorative sash, sash. Then Moses placed the chest piece on Aaron and put the Urim and the Tumiim inside it. He placed on Aaron's head the turban with the gold medallion on its front, the Tumiim inside it. He placed on Aaron's head the turban with the gold medallion on its front, and anointed the tabernacle and everything in it, thus making them holy. He sprinkled the altar 7 times, anointing it and its utensils and the wash basin and its pedestal, making them holy. Then he poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head, thus anointing him and making him holy for his work. Next, Moses presented Aaron's sons and clothed them in their embroidered tunics, their sashes, and their turbans. Clothed them in their embroidered tunics, their sashes, and their turbans, just as the Lord commanded him. Then Moses brought in the bull for the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head as Moses slaughtered it. Moses took some of the blood, and with his finger he put it on the 4 horns of the altar to purify it. He poured out the rest of the blood on the base of the altar. In this way he set the altar apart as holy and made an atonement for it. He took all the fat around the internal organs, the lobe and the liver, and the 2 kidneys and their fat, and he burnt them all on the altar. The rest of the bull, including its hide, meat, and dung, were burnt outside the camp, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then Moses presented the ram to the Lord for the whole burnt offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head as Moses slaughtered it. Then Moses took the ram's blood and sprinkled it against the sides of the altar. Next he cut the ram into pieces and burnt the head and some of its pieces, the fat on the altar. After washing the internal organ and the legs with water, Moses burnt the entire ram on the altar as a whole burnt offering. It was an offering given to the Lord by fire, very pleasing to the Lord. All this was done just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Next, Moses presented the second ram, which was the ram of ordination. Aaron and his sons laid their hands on its head as Moses slaughtered it. Then Moses took some of its blood and put it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. Next he presented Aaron's sons and put some of the blood on the lobe of their right ears, and their thumb of their right hands, and the big toe of their right feet. Then he sprinkled the rest of the blood against the sides of the altar. Next he took the fat, including the fat from the tail and from around the internal organs, the lobe of the liver, and the 2 kidneys with their fat, along with the right thigh. On top of these he placed a loaf of unleavened bread, a cake of unleavened bread, and soaked it with olive oil, and a thin wafer spread with olive oil. All of these were taken from the basket of bread made without yeast that was placed in the Lord's presence. He gave all of these to Aaron and his sons, and he presented the portions by lifting them up before God. Moses then took all the offerings back and burnt them on top of the altar of burnt offerings as an ordination offering. It was an offering given to the Lord by fire, very pleasing to the Lord. Then Moses took the breast and lifted it up in the Lord's presence. This was Moses' share of the ram ordination, just as the Lord had commanded him. Next, Moses took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood that was on the altar and sprinkled them on Aaron and his sons' clothing, and on his sons' clothing. And in this way he made Aaron and his sons and their clothing holy. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, "Boil the rest of the meat at the tabernacle entrance, and eat it along with the bread that is in the basket of the ordination offerings, just as I commanded you. Any meat or bread that is left over must be burnt up. Do not leave the tabernacle entrance for 7 days, for that is the time it would take to complete the ordination ceremony. What has been done today was commanded by the Lord in order to make atonement for you. Remember, you must stay at the entrance of the tabernacle day and night for 7 days, doing everything the Lord requires. If you fail to do this, you will die." This is what the Lord has said. So Aaron and his sons did everything the Lord had commanded through Moses. That was Leviticus 8 and 9. And finishing up with Proverbs 22. Proverbs 22. Choose a good reputation over great riches, for being held in high esteem is better than having silver or gold. The rich and the poor have this in common. The Lord made them both. A prudent person foresees the danger ahead and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. True humility and fear of the Lord leads to riches, honor, and a long life. The deceitful walk on a thorny, treacherous road. The deceitful walk on a thorny, treacherous road. Whoever values life will stay away. Teach your children to choose the right path, and when they are older, they will remain upon it. Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. Those who plant seeds of injustice will harvest disaster, and their reign of terror will end. Blessed are those who are generous, because they feed the poor. Throw out the mocker, and fighting quarrels and insults will disappear. Anyone who loves a pure heart and gracious speech is the king's friend. The Lord preserves knowledge, but the ruins the plans of the deceitful. The lazy person is full of excuses, saying, if I go outside, I might meet a lion in the street and be killed. The mouth of an immoral woman is a deep pit. Those living under the Lord's displeasure will fall into it. A youngster's heart is filled with foolishness, but discipline will drive it away. A person who gets ahead by oppressing the poor or by showering gifts on the rich will end in poverty. 30 sayings of the wise. Listen to the words of the wise. Apply your heart to my instruction. For it is good to keep these sayings deep within yourself, always ready on your lips. I am teaching you today, yes, you, so you will trust in the Lord. I have written 30 sayings for you, filled with advice and knowledge. In this way you may know the truth and bring accurate report to those who sent you. Do not rob the poor because they are poor, or exploit the needy in court. For the Lord is their defender. He will injure anyone who injures them. Keep away from angry, short-tempered people, or you will learn to be like them and endanger your soul. Do not co-sign another person's note or put up a guarantee for someone else's loan. If you can't pay it, even your bed will be snatched from under you. Do not steal your neighbor's property by moving the ancient boundary markers set up by your ancestors. Do you see any truly competent workers? They will serve kings rather than ordinary people. Proverbs 22. Stay blessed.